Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So as we generally do on these festival days, instead of a regular Dhamma talk, I'm going to tell one of the stories from the Jatakas. I'm going to recount the story of the Matanga Jataka. It's kind of a little bit odd story. I think it has probably some pre-Buddhist elements, and a lot of the story revolves around caste, issues of caste in the Indian society. The story of the present, this sets the tone for the story. This is a format of the Jatakas. There'd be something happened in the present, and then the Buddha would say, so it is. This similar thing happened in the past. In the present, the monk Pindola Bharadvaja, one of the elder monks of the Buddha's following, was taking his day's ease in the royal gardens. And at that time, King Udena also entered the gardens together with some of his concubines, and they were enjoying themselves in the garden, and the king fell asleep. And the ladies went wandering with nothing to do. They went wandering about, and they come across the monk, and they ended up all sitting in a circle around listening to him as discoursing on the Dhamma. And the king woke up, and he says, where'd all the ladies go? And he goes looking for them, and he gets angry. You see them all sitting around this monk, and he grabs a scoop of dirt from an anthill full of biting ants and throws it on the monk's head. And later on, this story gets to the Buddha, and he says, so it was also in the past, that in a previous birth, that Udena abused holy men. And then he tells this Jataka story. And the Bodhisattva at that time had taken birth as a Chandala. A Chandala in ancient India was the lowest caste, the outcasts. They did all the dirty jobs, the sweeping and carrying refuse and so on. And this particular fellow had the name of Matanga. And he had the job of being a mongoose tamer. I guess they used mongooses, or I'm not sure what the plural is, mongooses or mongoose. They used the mongooses for catching snakes. This was his livelihood. And he lived in the Chandala village, a little village of rickety, run-down shacks outside the town gates. And he would come into the town to buy supplies or do business. And by this birth, the Bodhisattva had developed the paramita of adhitthana, the perfection of resolution, to a very high degree. So he had the power of whatever he resolved, he set his mind to, he would accomplish without fail. So this day he went into the town, and he saw there was a commotion. There were people were tidying up the shop fronts and sweeping the streets, and he asked what's going on. And they said, oh, this is the day once a month the lady Dittika Mangala comes to the market to do her shopping. Well, who's she? Oh, she's very famous, well known in the town. She's a very beautiful young lady. She's the daughter of the richest merchant in the town. And it's a very good day for us when she comes with her whole retinue, and they do a lot of business, and everybody makes money. So he said, oh, I've got to see this. And he sets himself by a doorpost and waits. And then this procession enters the market. All these finely dressed serving men, and they're carrying a litter with this a curtain litter with the lady inside. And she opens the curtain of her litter to look about, and she sees Matanga, the outcast, standing beside a doorpost in his raggedy clothes, bare feet, and dirty looking. And she says, "Who's that wretch over there?" And he said, "Oh, that's a chandala. That's an outcast, my lady." And she says, "Oh my goodness, I've seen an unlucky sight today. It's not a good day. Turn around, take me back to my home, and I'm going to have to wash my eyes out with perfume water, because you've seen a outcast." So this upsets all the people in all the market people, and they blame it on Matanga, and they start abusing him, and they start beating him and hit him with cudgels and kicking him. "You filthy outcast! You lost us our best business day of the month." And so Matanga doesn't take very kindly to this ill treatment, and he says, "I'm going to get even with this woman. I'm not going to rest. I'm going to make a resolution. I'm not going to rest until I've made her my wife." It just seemed like a totally impossible thing for an outcast to marry a merchant's daughter. But there you have it. He had made the resolution. So he camped himself out in front of her father's house. And when people asked him, "What are you doing here?" he said, "I'm here because I want Ditamangala for my wife, and I won't leave until I have it." And they say, "You're a fool, you're an idiot," and they beat him and kick him and drive him away. But he comes back day after day, no matter how much abuse he gets. He says, I'm here to marry Ditamangala." And the merchant's business starts to fall away because no one wants to come in with this dirty outcast sitting in front of the house, and commotion every day. And after many days of this, the merchant finally says, "Well, there's only one way to get rid of him, I guess. Daughter, you're going to marry that guy." And he gives Ditamangala to Matanga to be his wife. And she comes outside, and she's not very happy about it, but she has to obey what her father says. And she says, "Well, outcast, I'm to be your wife. You're to be my husband. Let's go to your house." And he says, "Well, your father's people have beaten me black and blue, and I'm nearly a cripple now. You're going to have to carry me." So he makes her carry him on her back, and she has to walk through the whole town in this. And everybody sees this. She's carrying this wretched outcast on her back. This fancy lady, famous Chittikamangala. And they go out the town gates to his little shack. And it says, there's a curious phrase in the in the text. It says that they lived together in the shack, but he did not violate the laws of caste. In the more literal translation, he did not intermix the ways of the castes. So I take that to mean that they did not have sexual relations. But she stayed in his house, and he looked after her as best he could. And he started to actually grow fond of her. And he thought, it's been kind of unfair to her, this rich lady now living in this wretched shack. I need to provide for her better than this. So he came up with an outlandish plan. And he told her, "I'm leaving for 7 days, and my relatives will look after you." And he made the resolution in his mind that he was going to develop psychic powers. So he went off to the forest and practiced asceticism and meditation for 7 days. And he developed all the psychic powers. And then he came back, and he told her, now she first berated him. "Why did you leave me to go off in the woods and practice meditation? You leave me alone here with your relatives. What kind of life is this?" And he says, "Calm down, woman, calm down. You're going to be more wealthy and more respected than you ever were before. Here's what's going to happen. In 3 days' time, I'm going to appear to the whole town in the form of a Brahma. And you're going to tell everyone that you're the wife of Brahma. Of course, in the Buddhist definition of a Brahma, this is quite ridiculous. Brahmins are beyond sensuality. They don't have gender, so they don't have husband and wife. It makes no sense whatsoever. But the people in the town worshiping the great Brahma. And there are other incidents, other kind of stories that kind of show up the worshippers of great Brahma as being kind of foolish. And in any case, she started telling people she was the wife of the great Brahma, and no one would take her seriously. But then in 3 days, at night, the night of the full moon, Matanga appears out of the full moon, as if bursting out of the disk, in the form of a magnificent Brahma in all his array of his garments and his halo, and just a very gigantic and impressive figure. And in the air, he circumambulates the whole town 3 times, and then comes to rest on the ground in front of the shack where Ditika Mangala is. And he announces to the assembled crowd, "I'm going in to see my wife." And he goes inside the shack and remains there for a short while. And he realizes when he's in the shack, he realizes with his psychic power that Ditika Mangala is wishing for a child. So he touches her navel with his thumb, and she immediately conceives. This is something that touching the navel with the thumb is something that occurs a couple of other times in other stories. Saka makes a human female pregnant that way. It's a princess that wanted to have or a queen that wanted to produce an heir to the throne and was unable to, and Saka appeared to her and granted her wish. Which is struck me as the Indian gods are much more decorous in their ways with human mortals than the Greek gods, turning into bulls and chasing them across the Hellespont and whatnot. In any case, he gets her pregnant with this magical means by touching her navel with his thumb, and then he tells her, now that you are known to be the wife of Brahma, your fortune is made. The kings of India will vie with one another for your foot washing water to use in their head consecrating ceremonies. The water you bathe in will be sought after as an elixir of immortality. People will pay 1,000 kahapanas for the privilege of bowing their head to your feet, and 100 kahapanas bowing to you from a short distance away. To bow to you from a long distance away, even, they will pay a rupee. So you'll be known now as the wife of the great Brahma. And he then disappears, flies up into the sky and disappears into the disk of the moon. And the people now worshipping Ditika Mangala as the wife of the great Brahma. And they fix up and decorate the shack she's living in. They fix it up and turn it into a little palace. It's called the Mandavya, the pavilion. They festoon it with garlands, and they fix up the roof, and they sweep all the ground around it and strew it with white sand. And they put up banners, and they're coming in great numbers of people coming to worship and see her. And she does a perambulation around the whole town, and just as Matanga said, people are paying 1,000 kahapanas for the privilege of bowing at her feet. So she makes a fortune of money in no time at all. And as for Matanga, he goes off back to practice asceticism in the forest now that uh, this is what he feels what he wants to do. He's living up in the Himavan, the magical far north of Jambudipa, in the forest, the wonderful magical forest there, practicing asceticism and meditation. And in due time, Jitaka Mangala gives birth, and the son, they name him Mandavya Kumara, the Prince of the Pavilion. And with the great family wealth they now have, he takes on almsgiving in a big way. But he's not pure in his heart. He's swollen with pride, as thinking himself the son of the great Brahma. And he's giving alms only to well-born Brahmins. Everyone else he just drives away. And so he has every day a big alms-giving ceremony and gives alms only to the well-born, or they say twice-born Brahmins. They call Brahmins twice-born because they're born from their mother the normal way, and then when the coming-of-age ceremony, they're considered to be born a second time, consecrated as Brahmins. So Matanga, after some years, the son's grown up. Matanga's been in the forest, and he uses his psychic power to check up on the family. See, I wonder how they're getting on. And he sees that the son has gone on this wrong path, being swollen with pride. And so he returns to the town, and when the son is giving this big alms ceremony to the Brahmins, Matanga appears in raggedy, dirty dress as an outcast, and seats himself down amongst the Brahmins, causing a commotion. And the prince, the young Kumara, he says, "Who is this wretched fellow? What's he doing here?" "Well, sir, I've come for alms." "You'll get no alms from me." And he calls some of his men. He says, "Take that fellow and thrash him soundly. Break his bones. Break his jaw. Crack his bones." And they go to running after him with their cudgels, and he flies up in the air and scolds them all. And this happens often in these stories, that the person or the god who wants to reveal himself does so by flying up in the air, hovering in space. And now he stands in the air, and they're all in awe of him, and he lectures them about the pride of caste and the falling into evil ways. And then he leaves that place, but he just goes a short distance away, and when he lands on the ground, he makes his resolution that his footprints will be highly visible, that they can find him. And he walks a ways to gather some alms, then goes to a little grove to sit down to eat his meal. Now, meanwhile, the local deities, the dewas, or actually yakas, that were resident in that place, they became upset because this holy man had been abused and insulted. They didn't take kindly to that. So they came and attacked Kumara Mandavya and his followers. But the chief of the yakas said, "Don't kill them. They're the son of Matanga, the honored one. But just teach them a good lesson." So what they do is they crack their necks and spin their heads around so that their heads are facing backwards. but it doesn't kill them. And they're lying on the ground in agony, unable to move, moaning and groaning, their heads twisted right around backwards. And somebody runs and tells Kumar's mother, Ditika Mangala, oh, something horrible has happened to your son. Him and his followers have been attacked by yakas. So she comes rushing to the scene, and she sees this horrible sight of the king and his cronies all lying on the ground, moaning with their heads on backwards. When she asks, in distress, what the hell happened to you? They're able to get out that they'd abused this outcast, and the yakas took revenge on him. And she thinks, I know who that outcast is. It has to be Matanga. I better go look for him. Maybe he can sort this out. And she finds his footsteps and follows him and finds him in this little grove calmly eating his lunch. And he's not surprised by what happened. He expected as much. And he says to her, well, if you want to help your son, I'll give you the magic ambrosia that will cure him. And he takes a lump of the rice gruel out of his bowl and hands it to her, and he says, this is the leftovers from my meal. You take this and mix it with water, make a syrup out of it, and give some to drink to the son and all his followers, and they'll be cured. So she hurries back as quickly as she can and administers this potion to them, and indeed they are all cured. But the Brahmins are now disgraced. The other Brahmins won't have anything to do with them. They've lost caste because they've eaten the leavings of a chandala. So they're disgraced, and they have to leave the town. And they're, of course, in a bad mood about it. They go to another town and kind of hide their identities and carry on there. And meanwhile, Matanga has gone back to his ascetic abode. And one day he's washing, after the meal, he's washing his mouth in the river, cleaning his mouth with a toothstick. Now, this is something we used to use in Thailand. There's a traditional kind of a way of washing the mouth. They use an astringent wood that's got a kind of a bitter flavor. It's got some medicinal quality. You sharpen one end and you pound the other to make it pulp it, to make like a brush. And then you have like a toothpick on one end and a brush on the other. You use that to clean your mouth. And when he's finished cleaning his mouth, he throws it in the river, and it drifts downstream. And downstream, it happens there's another one of these high caste Brahmins has set up there, and he's bathing in the river, and this toothstick gets stuck in his hair, and he pulls it out, and he goes looking at what oaf threw this in the river, and he goes upstream and he finds Matanga there and sees that he's a chandala, and this enrages the Brahmin. He's got a chandala's toothstick stuck in his hair. And starts abusing this fellow and says, "You better move downstream for me." So Matanga says, "Okay, I'll move downstream." And he moves downstream, but now he's got it again. He wants to teach this Brahmin a lesson. He's not happy with the situation. So he uses his power of resolution. When he throws his toothsticks in the water, may they drift upstream. And every day this Brahmin's getting toothsticks stuck in his hair. And after a few days, he comes down to Matanga in a high rage. And he says, "If you don't leave this spot by the time the sun comes up tomorrow morning, your head will split into 7 pieces. I curse you." So Matanga says, "Okay, we'll see about that." And the next day, he uses his power to prevent the sun from rising. Just as it starts to come over the crest of the land, it stops. And so, of course, this causes a calamity. It's in the a great distress in the whole country, and people are coming. And the words got out. This powerful yogi in the forest has caused this. And they come begging him to let the sun carry on its way. And he says, "Well, you'll have to get that fellow to apologize and take back his curse." So they bodily drag this Brahmin to Matanga, who's sitting on his seat, and they force the Brahmin to get down on his hands and knees and bow to Matanga and beg his forgiveness. And Matanga says, "Well, there's one more thing. The way this curse works. Now, if I was to let the sun move, this fellow's head would split into 7 pieces. Well, what can we do? Here's what we do. Get a lump of clay, stick it on the top of his head, and then put him underwater so that just the clay is sticking out." And they do that. And then Matanga allows the sun to continue rising, and this piece of clay splits into 7 pieces. And then the Brahmin comes out of the water spluttering and moaning and leaves that place for good. It's never seen again. In the finale of the story, the very last incident, after some further time, Matanga, in his wanderings, he happens to come through the town where all those Brahmins that were disgraced are now abiding. And they recognize him, and they're upset, and they want their vengeance on him. So they tell the king of the town that a charlatan and a mountebank and a scoundrel that we know from before has come into this town, and he's going to trick and abuse the people. We suggest, sire, you do something about this. And the king was quite gullible and a follower of these Brahmins, so he ordered his men to go and kill Matanga. And because of some old karma of Matanga, he didn't escape this time. He was taken by surprise, and they hacked him up with swords. And that was the end of him. But it's not quite the end of the story, because once again the Yakas didn't take kindly to this. They were very fond of Matanga. So they caused a rain of hot ash to totally wipe out the town. And that's the end of the story. And then at the end, the Buddha identifies the births. The prince, Kumara Madhavya, was King Udena. And the Buddha himself was Matanga, the outcast. So that's the Matanga Jataka. As a curiosity about this Jataka is a number of things about it that pique my interest. One is that I've often heard it said when people are talking, about the morality and the related to the Jatakas, the ethical principles, that the precept against lying, the fourth precept, Musawada Varamani, is said to be the only one that the Bodhisattva never violates in any of the Jatakas. But this one seems to be an exception because he does present himself as the great Brahma. It seems like a deception, if he didn't outright lie, if he didn't actually claim to be the Brahma himself. He did tell his wife to tell everybody that he did tell her to lie. And he just manifested as a Brahma, let people draw their own conclusions. So you could say technically he didn't actually utter a lie, but he certainly acted deceitfully in that instant. And it's also the various caste relations are interesting in this story. That the humbling, the project of Matanga to humble these high caste people. This is kind of amusing. Is a low caste chandala. He, first of all marries this higher caste woman, and then he humiliates all these various Brahmins. The Brahmins generally don't come off well in the Jataka stories. They're always shown as being scoundrelish and foolish. The point that after he married Ditikamangala, they did not violate the laws of caste. There's some squeamishness there about this. One of the very central principles of the caste relations is that a high caste woman would never be with a low caste man. The reverse can happen, and it's not considered so nearly so. It may not be the most desirable marriage, but it's not considered shameful for a high caste man to marry a lower caste woman. But a lower caste woman would never be with a high caste man. Like a complete taboo. So that's the Matanga Jataka.